back to my channel. This week we have a bit of a different video than what I was planning. This was supposed to be another character breakdown video, but it's been so long since I watched the show that went along with the character that I was having a lot of trouble writing their breakdown. So I decided to, after giving up, I actually gave up, but after giving up, I decided to come back to the blog, or the character breakdown idea, after I had researched the show and felt more comfortable in the area. For this week, we are talking about children, specifically children in writing. I know the title of this is probably making people think, oh my god, she's pregnant. No, I'm not. Anyone who knows me knows that would take a literal miracle. But I'm talking about children in writing, creating them, adding them, making sure you don't forget about them. I've done that. Accidentally, but I've done that. Trust me, it takes a lot of work, even more depending on where you're putting them. For me, children have always been an element that was a when instead of an if in my writing. I know children will happen eventually. I don't always know when that eventually is, but I know it's going to happen. It's what happens when you have a world where children are a common thing. And adding children in can be really tricky because most of the time you're adding them in as newborns or infants or even toddlers who need help with basically everything. And that's where we'll start. Children take a lot of work. I can see all my parent friends rolling their eyes at me going, duh. I learned this at the age of 8. Well, I knew it before then, but I really learned it at the age of 8 when my mom and my older sibling got sick at the same time. And I was left to take care of them and my 2-year-old sister. And it was a challenge. Well, not taking care of the sick ones. They were pretty much slept through it all. But taking care of my 2-year-old sister by myself was a lot. Have you ever tried to bathe a 2-year-old by yourself when you're only 8? It's not easy. That is when I learned that children, yes, they are a lot of work. Children, no matter how many there are, can be a full-time job. That's why I never considered my grandmother without a job. The woman raised 5 kids, took care of the house, and my grandfather, she had a job. The amount of work that goes into a child depends on the stage of life they're in. Newborns need constant attention, feeding, changing, interacting. It's an hourly thing with them. Newborns are basically the same, except now they're growing more aware and more likely to start getting into trouble, grabbing or eating things that they shouldn't, babbling at all the wrong times, and don't even get me started once they start crawling and walking. And toddlers, I just have to remember I love my nephews. When adding a child into your work, you have to ask yourself, is it really a good idea? Will adding them cause more problems than can be handled? Will they be a liability? I know it sounds horrible, but in some cases it's true. And this entire post is going to sound like I don't like children. I love children. To death, I love children. I love my nephews. I love my furry nieces and nephews. I love them all. I was in Walmart a few months back. There's this kid, couldn't have been older than 4 or 5. He wanted this nice sweater he found in the women's section. And his mother kept telling him he couldn't have it because it was too big for him. I was giving her massive kudos for the fact that she was telling him it was too big and not because it was a woman's sweater. But she told him, it's too big, it'll never fit you, you can't have it. And when she puts it back on the rack, he cries out, you're ruining my life! And he kept going like that throughout the store. You could hear him wherever he was, which normally would be irritating, but the things coming out of his mouth, because one of the last things I heard him shout was, you're killing me, Mom! And I nearly collapsed to the floor laughing. I wouldn't have been so disrespectful to the mother, but she was laughing as well, so I felt okay with my reaction. When adding children into your writing, you have to ask yourself, can their needs be realistically met without stretching things beyond the believable point? It all comes back to that word you all know I love, research. It sounds silly saying to research children, but there's a lot about kids you really don't know until you've either fallen down that research rabbit hole or have kids of your own. I chose the former since my kid has 4 legs, fur, and a tail. Pretty much what all of my writing advice videos come down to is you have to research the subject. You have to make sure you know every scenario, every variable. You have to know them all. Children are vulnerable. This should be another massive duh. All of my points are kind of like right up there in the massive duh category. But a lot of people assume children can handle themselves. I personally blame decades of movies and TV shows giving unrealistic views of just what children can handle and what they can and can't do. And I know I sound like every adult we've ever rolled our eyes at for blaming mainstream media and violent video games, but I have a point where they're just annoying. Think back to all the shows you watched as kids, all the shows that had characters the same age you were, who were going off and adventuring by themselves, surviving situations you know you could not survive now as an adult, and you definitely could not have survived then as a kid because you probably tried. And yes, it's all fiction, but not everyone realizes that. People will think back to tromping around in the woods, riding bikes all over town, and surviving just fine. But they seem to forget what age they were when they were allowed to start that. Granted, I was walking home from school from the age of like 7 on, second grade on, but that was only because 1, I had an older sibling with me, and 2, I walked right along the main road. Everyone in town knew who I was, so it wasn't too much of a dangerous situation. It was still a dangerous situation, but it wasn't too much of a dangerous situation because I had someone with me and everyone knew who I was and where I was supposed to be. But I wasn't allowed to go into my own backyard by myself until I was 10. And I still hate my little sister going out to do things alone. And she's 22 and doesn't live at home anymore. Okay. We all remember thinking we were unstoppable and invincible. And the truth is we weren't. We had someone to take care of us when we did stupid things and got hurt. We had someone waiting for us to come home or to go looking for us when we didn't come home. And that's what you have to remember when adding characters into your writing. They need that. They need to make sure someone's there to take care of them. They need to have someone to come home to or to search for them when they don't. They need, especially at the ages where they can't take care of themselves, they can't look out for themselves, they're going to need someone there. And you have to remember that's going to take away from what your adult characters can do if they have this shard that is vulnerable and needs to be taken care of. And you have to ask yourself, is it going to be possible? You have to make sure you give it the time and thought it deserves before making that final decision. I honestly sound like a parenting video saying, are you really ready to have a child? I don't think so. No, all this fits for that. In my opinion, it all fits for that, but don't take this as parenting advice. Please don't take this as parenting advice. As I said, my kid has 4 legs, a tail, and fur. Children are loud is point number 3. Like I said, all the massive duh points. Obviously, children are loud. I've got 2 living above me currently that sound more like elephants than children. It makes me want to apologize to everyone who lived below us in our first home when my siblings and I were kids because we were loud. Like obnoxiously loud. But it's a fact of life. Children are loud. Maybe not all the time, maybe not to the extreme, but it's built into their DNA. It's how they learn. It's how they, figure things out. They're loud, they're obnoxious, they're inquisitive, and it can be a dangerous combination. You have to ask yourself, what is that loud behavior going to do to the other people around the child? Is it going to attract the wrong attention? Is it going to put the group in danger? Is it really a good idea to add that loud element to certain situations? Again, I acknowledge that this entire thing is making it sound like I hate children and that I find them a burden and annoying and everything. I promise I don't. I think with the mind of a writer and when my writer writing thinks very logically, like, is it a good idea to add a child into this situation? Is it a good idea to do this? It's not. It never is. Not for me anyway. I have created more than my fair share of children over my writing career. As you've seen throughout the video, there have been random images of children popping up for my characters. Mostly I've been able to keep them from coming during times of great danger, but they have popped up now and again where their presence proves more dangerous than anything. And while I've regretted the timing more than once, I've always managed to work them being there and keeping them alive, if not unharmed, because that's another fact of life. Children get hurt. Thankfully, they tend to bounce back faster than adults or teens, but it does happen, and you have to remember that as well. When in certain situations are they going to come out unscathed? Will they be all right mentally? Will they be all right emotionally? Those are things you have to remember, not just their physical health, but their mental and emotional health too, because that can get hurt just as easily as their bodies. And when they're little, it lasts a lot longer. Like, my first memory is of my parents fighting loudly. And I am now gun shy around loud noises, thunder, fireworks. I have to be mentally prepared for a situation not to freak the fuck out. And that's because my first memory is of loud and knowing it was a bad thing. But that aside, you have to keep that all in mind. What it all boils down to is children are quite possibly the most risky of all factors you can add into your writing. Animals can be trained. Adults and teens can adapt and learn faster, but children, they take time, they take effort, and they take trial and error, for lack of a better way to put it. Children, like I just said, children learn through trial and error. They learn by messing up and going again. It's how we all learn. But with children, it takes longer and it's more dangerous because they don't always understand why something is dangerous until they've dealt with it 2, 3, or 4 times. I had to climb on top of the monkey bars as a kid at least 4 times before I realized it was a bad idea because I couldn't get down because I was scared of heights. You would not believe the amount of times I had to have a Reese's aide help me down from the monkey bars. It's a little embarrassing. In my opinion, writing them takes almost as much effort as raising them. Okay, maybe about half as much effort as raising them, but you get my point. Always think about what you'll have to do or won't be able to do when adding children into your writing. And that is our video for this week on children in writing. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any experience with children in writing. I am going to have a video next year about all the children I've created, how I created them, all that fun stuff. It's going to be interesting. And it's going to be a lengthy one, but I look forward to it because I do give careful and complete thought to the children I create, to just what it is they're going to be like and what they're going to go through and all that fun stuff. As always, all of my social media handles and my blog will be down in the description below if you want to read the post that goes along with this video. Don't forget to hit that like button if you did enjoy the video. It means the world to me. Also, if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe. I love knowing you guys like my videos and that you want to see more. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell and set your options for your notifications to all so you get all your notifications, not just for when I upload, but for when everyone you follow uploads. And I will see you guys in next week's video.